In trading, knowledge is power, and lack of knowledge in what you're doing can be costly, very costly. So you need a solid foundation of quality market education. Whether you're new to trading or a seasoned veteran looking to add advanced strategies to your arsenal, there's always something to learn and something to improve on. And now you can access the same knowledge that professional traders receive with Market Rebellion's Trading Education. I'm Bill Johnson, Head of Options Education here at Market Rebellion, and we've assembled a comprehensive curriculum based on decades of real trading experience, covering everything you need to know about trading options from beginner to advanced. We go way beyond the nuts and bolts of options theory to teach you how to apply specific trading strategies and the techniques needed to adapt your trades when markets shift. Regardless of your goals, you'll gain access to the education you need with easy-to-consume lessons so you can learn to trade with confidence, enhance your knowledge, and master the practical skills required for market success. So please join us for in-depth trading education only from Market Rebellion. Hey, good morning, Market Rebels. Yes, it is morning. We are going to record this ahead of time again due to some scheduling issues. But Stu, this is our first one after Miami. We had a fabulous time in Miami. Yep.
We did. We had a great time. Met a lot of great people and everybody, I think, hopefully walked away with something.
Hopefully walked away with something. We got to finally meet many of you that we recognize you by your screen names, but don't know you by face. So it was kind of fun to meet all these people, and but hopefully that many of you will be able to catch us for some future ones, which I understand we're going to be having. So that was a lot of fun. And anyway, one of the things that was special about this one, it was a real boot camp educational side. And we really believe in the educational side because options can be very tricky. And too many times, as we demonstrated, that a lot of times people think that call options are just cheaper versions of stock, put options are cheaper versions of short stock, and the rest is easy. And that is not true. You got lots of moving parts. Lots of moving parts. And so what I thought would be a good one today, a little bit of a follow through to talk to also show how tricky things can get. And also very interesting, but once you understand these intricacies, it's going to make you a better trader because you can make better decisions. Now, this one is a little bit of math, probably a little bit more than we go into. It's let's call it the Coach's Corner version of an Option School article that I did. We've gotten a few questions on it, so we thought maybe the rest of you on YouTube might want to hear the answers to it and benefit from it as well.
By the way, little plug here, everyone. For those of you who have access to it, or if you don't have access to it, try and get yourself access to it. Bill's Option Schools article are outstanding. They are clear, they are succinct, and they are very educational, and they're actually fun to read. So I highly recommend get a hold of that stuff. It's good stuff.
Well, we appreciate that, but we know that education is really the foundation. So here's one for everybody. Again, we're going to start off with a little chalk talk question. And a little clue, they're always designed to sound easy, but they're going to make you think. Not as easy as they might look. So the question for today, Stu, are short-term options cheaper than longer-term options? So we want all of you to take your best shot, jot it down, commit to an answer, and at the end we'll come back and answer it. Okay, so there's your question. So now, what's our topic on this one? Well, there's lots of different angles.
Those of you that know us at this point know that the obvious answer
is for sure not the
right. Not the answer.
Is for sure not the right one. So if you're going to jump on whatever your answer is, probably a good idea to think twice. So we'll give you that for a clue. So we're going to take a little different angle of attack this time and talk about fixed points. A new look at square root pricing. Now, fixed points is a topic in math, and it's one of the more fascinating topics, I think. Some absolutely bizarre, very interesting outcomes from it. But I promise you, it has a very big application to options trading, which we'll get to at the end. But we thought we'd at least kind of show you some of the other ideas about fixed points. So before we do that, quick reminder, when we look at a time decay curve, with that, which I think most of you are familiar with, so we have, let's say, days across the bottom here. So we're going from 100 days down to 0. This is a $10 option, and we know that it tends to decay fairly slowly at first, and then does what? Goes off this steep cliff down over here. So this is a whole other point of discussion in the future. Too many people think that this is a dangerous area.
Bill, I don't think
We,
I'm seeing your graph here.
why are we not seeing it?
You sharing it?
I am.
Maybe come out and do it again?
Is John seeing it here? Yeah.
No.
Okay. So we'll continue on. Hope everybody else is seeing it. But at any rate, the idea is that we have this slow decay and then we go off a steep cliff. But the reason that it's drawn in this direction from the high dollar amount and decaying this way is that we usually think of time moving from left to right, right? We read from left to right. So that's kind of a good visual of time going by. But if you notice it, we're starting at 100 and counting down to 0. These are days to expiration. And whenever we plot something on a graph, at least what computers like in Excel, is that we start from 0 and count up. So we could flip this, and here's the average decay too as well. We know that it doesn't decay in a straight line. That's just to show the kind of this time decay graph. But if we flip it, what do we get? Now we are really looking through the back side of it. You can see that we're putting 0 over here. So my point of this is to show that some books are going to show the time decay graph looking this way, but now you have to think that time is moving right to left down to 0, or they'll show it this way. It's the same graph, and that's going to be important for later in the presentation because most people are used to seeing it this way. We're going to see it from this perspective. And again, that'll make more sense in a little bit. So before we get started with fixed points, quick reminder for everybody, marketrebellion.com/get started. Lots of great courses just like this, over 40 to be exact. And so anyway, no signups, no emails, no 2FAs, none of that. Just jump on there and you can get topics just like this. So fixed points, what are these all about? Well, it's a very simple definition. I know the mathematicians are going to cringe from this, but basically it's a point that does not change upon some type of a transformation. We're going to make some kind of a change to it, and yet something doesn't move. Now, it's, again, lots of applications, but there is an application for options traders. But again, I want to show people some of the more interesting outcomes from fixed points. So Stu, here's a good one. Let's say we have 2 copies of a US map, and we're going to take one and we're just going to wad it up. Now, when I say wad it up, take your choice. You can wad it up tightly, you can just barely do it, you could fold it into a paper airplane, origami swan, whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter. And that's one of the things that makes it so fascinating. Okay, so we got an exact copy, one's just wadded up. Now we're going to take the, let's call it the flat copy, and we're going to take our wadded up copy and we're going to place it somewhere on the map. And it is absolutely guaranteed that one of the cities in the crumpled up paper is directly over its corresponding city in the flat map. Pretty weird. And it doesn't matter where we place it, provided a couple of conditions. We can't tear the paper, we can't have it hanging off the side. It's intact, it's just transformed or wadded up somehow. We can also make it very big. You could make it very small. And it doesn't matter. There is some city, so in this case, I don't know, what is that, maybe Albuquerque or somewhere, that would be directly over itself on that wadded up paper. So that's just kind of a more of a fun one, but that's the idea of a fixed point, that under some transformation, in this case, wadding up a piece of paper, that there is at least one point that does not change. Very counterintuitive. So if that's kind of cool, in 2D, let's take it to 3D. Before we do that, quick reminder, marketrebellion.com/get started. More cool topics just like this. So in 3D, Stu, here's one. Take a cup of coffee, maybe you put some cream into it and you stir it. And once it settles down and is no longer swirling, I know this is hard to believe, there's at least one molecule that is in the identical spot before you stirred it.
I don't believe that.
I know it's absolutely mathematically proven. The proofs are really difficult to show, not so hard in 2D, but I know it's so counterintuitive.
Dude, you're making that up, man. I'm telling you.
You would think it. I know it's like that's what's fascinating about it. It's like science fiction. And again, we're gonna. This is leading up to options, I promise. But just to give you the idea of what a fixed point is,
Bill, is that a science fiction fact?
this is a true mathematical fact.
Okay.
It absolutely is. So here's another one, kind of a fun one, the magical number 4. Let's say we pick a number, and it doesn't matter what number you pick. So just to make it fairly simple, I'm going to pick 27. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a transformation to it by spelling it. And so we spell out the word 27. Now there happens to be 11 letters in the words 27. So now we take the number 11 and we do the transformation there. We spell it. There happens to be 6 letters here. We take 6, we spell it. There's 3. We take the number 3. There's 5. We take 5, we spell it. There, F-I-V-E. We have 4 letters. And guess what happens here at 4? Fixed point. You will always land on 4. Why is that? Because 4 is the only word in the English language, or only number, where its spelling has the same number of letters as its meaning. So as you do these transformations, you will always land on 4. Pretty wild. All right, now I'm sure people are going, what has this got to do with options? Lots. So check this out. Let's take a look at some option prices. And these are days to expiration. So we're counting 30 days, 60, 90. Here's a year, 360 days. And down here is 2 years, 720 days. If you want to look at them as months, that's fine as well. 24 months over here. And I'm going to just reference it to the 1-year option here. According to a pricing model under a certain given interest rates and volatility, I think I used 0 interest rates, which is what I usually do. And that should be 20% volatility, which is going to give you an option price of roughly 8. All right, so this whole column is just saying 20% vol and 30 days to expiration, no interest rate, we get $229 for an option price. If we change it to 60 days, we get $323. That's all this column is just a pricing model price with this many days to expiration.
And what are you using for a stock price here?
I think it was 100.
Yeah, it looks like 100.
Yeah,
Okay.
100. Yep. That's our 0.4 rule right there. So anyway, normalized, what does this mean? Well, instead of having different prices on our graph that we're going to get to in a minute, we need to kind of make them all standardized relative to this 1 year. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take 229 divided by 791, and that gives us 0.29. So we're just saying that 229 is 29% of our 1-year option. Obviously, the 1-year option is 100% of itself. And then if we come down here, now we're seeing the square root pricing rule. 2 years is not twice as much. It's the square root of 2, 1.41 times as much.
That's a key number, everyone, by the way.
That's a key number.
You do a lot with that number.
Oh, yeah. Now, here are a number of years. So we're just saying this is obviously 1 year. This is 30 out of 360, or 30 out of 365 is about 0.08 years. And then down here would obviously be 2 years. So we're just putting all of these in terms of years instead of days. So that's all that column is. Over here now we have a linear price. Now this one we're going to get into, remember that options are not priced in a straight line or linearly, but we're going to, in this column, pretend that they are. So what this means is that if the 1-year option is priced at 791 and options were priced linearly, which they're not, the 2-year option would be twice that much. It'd be 1582, right? The 30-day would be 1/12. We would just take 791 divided by 12. We get 66 cents. Now, again, that is not the way options are priced. We can see over here, the pricing model is telling us it's 229. But we need this for a reason. And we're going to come back to this column in just a little bit. So now let's come over to a graph. And here is our, what some people will think looks like, that's why I showed it at the beginning, our time decay graph in black. So what you're looking at there are the normalized figures. That was the option price divided by 791. And we get our, just rescaled, our time decay graph. And the blue line is the number of years. And what do you notice? They cross at a single point. That's a fixed point in terms of square roots. And that fixed point is going to be 1. Why is that a fixed point, Stu? Well, let's do a fun little game here.
Yep.
Let's see if I can bring up a calculator. Should be able to bring it up. And it is not cooperating. Come on. Let's see if we can do it this way. Wow, I've got it programmed in here lots of different ways, and it is just not behaving. So at any rate, something you can do at home. Take out a calculator. Stu, name a number for me, less than 1.
Quarter.
Okay, so everybody at home, take out a calculator, put in 0.25, and just keep hitting the square root button. Might need to hit it 20 or 30 times, and you will land on 1. Why? 1 is a fixed point because 1 is the square root of 1. It's the only number that's true. Again, that's why it's kind of like when we saw the spelling of the numbers. It's the only number where that's going to work. Pick a number greater than 1.
10.
10. Put 10 into your calculator, keep hitting square root bunches of times, and guess where you're going to land?
I'm going to go with 1.
You're going to land on 1, and once you hit 1, you're going to go into a loop. And that's what we're seeing here. All right, so what does this have to do with options pricing? What this tells you is that if options were priced linearly.
By the way, everyone, I was just doing that, and I absolutely landed on 1
Oh, did you?
eventually.
Yeah, you have to. Yep. So let's say that we look at the 1-year option. Okay, there's 360 days. That's right where it crosses. That's our fixed point. That always has to be true. So now let's say that we put 20% into our pricing model. What that tells us is that the 1-year option is priced at exactly 20%. But if we look to longer dated options, notice that the black line, the real world price, that's the Black-Scholes price, this is our made up linear price in blue. What happens? It trades at a discount. The real world price gets cheaper relative to the 1-year. If we go to the left of our fixed point of our 1-year mark, what happens? Now the real world price, the Black-Scholes price in black, is what? It's at a premium. The black line sits above the blue. So what does this tell you? What it tells you is that if you are buying shorter term, less than a year, we'll define it that way, you are paying a premium relative to the 1-year option.
And what's the other side? What's the other side say? The other side says if you go longer, you're paying a discount.
You're getting a discount. And we're going to see how big those premiums and discounts are in just a moment. But the thing to see is that when you put a number into the pricing model, that is exactly pricing the 1-year option. Why? That's a fixed point. That always has to be true. So if we price it at 20%, we know that our 1-year option in our pricing model is priced at 20%. As you start going to shorter dated options, the Black-Scholes price, again in black, let's call it the real world price, sits higher than the linear price. So we saw that if the 1-year option costs, let's just call it $8, the 6-month option should cost $4 or half that amount. See, that's what it's showing. It would be half the amount right there, but it's not. It sits up here. It's much greater than half. And we can see that that disparity gets really big until you, I mean, especially down here in the 30-day mark or below. So you're paying a very big premium for going shorter term. And the irony is that if you talk to most people, they think that they're getting a discount, or that they're doing themselves a favor by saying, well, at least I don't have much risk. I'm only paying $1.75. We're actually going to do a breakout today in our Q&A class on this very topic because that's why we're opposed to using the word risk for the amount you have in an option. If you pay $1 for an option for a 30-day, people say, well, I'm risking $1. And that sounds like it's low risk, right? Because $1 is cheap. And if you buy a long dated option for 8, you're saying, well, over here you're risking 8 and here you're risking $1. But what they don't realize is that the reason that those prices are different is because the probabilities of success are vastly different. And that's why a lot of people get into trouble. And this is a wonderful way to see that these premiums get really big. Once you start crossing up below that 1 year mark, they start getting cheaper as you go forward. So how big are these premiums and discounts, do you suppose, Stu?
I think you're gonna find, I know that you're gonna find that they are fairly relatively large.
We're not talking peanuts here. Well, that's what this last column is over here. So to explain that one, what we're saying is that if you have to pay 229, that's the real world price, the Black-Scholes price. But the linear price, again, if options were priced in a straight line fashion, that if this one, let's call it 8, this would be 1/12 of that. It's just 1/12 of the time. Well, you're not paying 66 cents, you're paying 229. That is
Ooh,
almost 3.5 times over the linear price. That is 250% increase. And yet people sit there and brag about a 20% gain or a 50% gain, and yet they're paying 3.5 times or 250% more relative to the 1 year option.
so everyone, there's this thing going on that we're talking about here, which is the option farther dated costs more absolute dollars, but the piece of time that you're buying, the segments of time that you're buying are much lower. So be really
Exactly.
careful what Bill's saying here when you're talking about what you're risking is what are you actually buying and what are you paying for what are you getting. So when you ask yourself the question, which one's more money, you're really careful about how you're answering that question.
Right. So if we say that, oh, I'm only risking 229, but out here I'm risking 1117, it sounds like this is higher risk. But what Stu is saying, if we look at it price per unit of time, see, we're not comparing apples and apples because this has got 720 days, that's got 30. So what we would say is, well, what's 229 divided by 30? That's what we might call the price per day. And then now do it with 1117 divided by 720. And you're going to see this one is much cheaper per unit of time. It's not cheaper in total. Obviously, 11 is much bigger than 2,
Yeah.
but it's cheaper per unit of time.
And that is
So,
something to consider as well. Another way to look at this is say, like, how many 30 days are going to go into 720 days? So
exactly,
if you take 720 and you divide it by 30, you're going to get 24.
24.
229 times 24 is
That's be another way to look at it, right?
a lot higher than 1117.
That would be going in the reverse direction. Correct. So take a
50.
look over here. So we can see that this premium it's still expensive, right? 2 times, or that's still 100%. Linear price is about $2, but you're having to pay 4. But we can see that it's dropping. And then obviously when you hit the 1 year mark, our fixed point, you're paying 100% of its value. But look what happens when you go beyond it. What this means is you're paying 96%. All right, so you're paying 823, that's the real world price. The linear price, if it were priced proportionally to the 1 year, would be 857. So you're paying a little bit less, or you're paying 96% of, which is the same as saying you're getting a 4% discount. But look what happens out here, Stu. You're paying, right? The linear price should say out here it's 2 times 791 or 1582. But the real world price, the Black-Scholes price is 1117. You're paying 71%, which is a 29%, let's call it 30% discount. And yet so many options traders are going to boast about a 30% gain. And yet here, which is a big question mark, we don't know if you can get that beforehand, but we know with 100% certainty you can get that kind of a discount. And people say, nope, I'm going to stick up here and pay 3.5 times the linear price. Now, again, we're
Right.
not going to say it's wrong or that 30-day options, they have their benefits, they have
No,
gamma,
no,
but you need to
absolutely.
understand what you're buying.
There is look, there's a big difference between laying out $11 and laying out 229.
Correct.
And you have to take that into consideration.
Yes, you
If
do.
you're looking to make a trade that's going to be in or around that 30-day period, why would you do the 24-month option? I mean, it would be
Agreed.
ridiculous to put that kind of money up. So you stick with the 229 or maybe the 60-day option at 323, which is even cheaper than the 229, even though it kind of looks more. But if you have an investment type approach to a time element on this, you're really much better off going with the longer dated option.
Yeah. So there's another nice little mathematical trick. Like I said, this is really a different perspective of the square root pricing rule, which says that if a 1 month option is $1, the 4 month option would be 2. You've got to go out 4 times the amount of time to double that price. So what's another way to figure out this discount? Where's that coming from? Well, we know that this is a 2-year option. So you put 2 into your calculator, take the square root, you get what? 1.41.
There's that
If you
1.4.
take what's called the reciprocal, you'll see a key on your calculator that says 1 over x. It's just flipping it. All right, so if you take 1/3, 1 over 3, the reciprocal is 3. It's 3 over 1. That's all it's doing. If you take 1.41 or divide it into 1, you get 0.71. So that's another way to figure out where that discount's coming from. If you have a 3-year option, take 3 square root reciprocal, and that's going to show you the discount. You're going to start getting into some really cheap units of time. And so what I always think is interesting is that it all hinges on that 1-year option because that's our fixed point. That's the one that is priced exactly according to the volatility that you enter. But as you start going shorter dated, effectively you're paying more. And if you go longer dated, you're effectively paying less. Pretty cool stuff. Any closing comments there, Stu, with that, or other ideas about this?
So next time you're thinking about trying to evaluate your losses or gains based on a
Right.
percentage, or your stops, or your where do I get out? Think about this kind of stuff here. Think about the dollars that are involved, the real
Right.
dollars, and think about the idea that should you choose to extend your trade simply by rolling out, would you have been better off had you gone with the later dated option in the beginning?
Yeah.
And that's a choice. Look, if you're going to do, let's just say you're doing more than one of them. Let's just say you're doing two of them. Maybe you do both. There's no, one of the recurring themes I find in my coaching is that people tend to think it's like all or none. It has to be this way or it has to be this way. And that is
Split them up.
absolutely not true, right? There's
Split them
always
up.
going to be some middle ground somewhere, which is not always exactly in the middle. Sometimes just a little left of center, sometimes just a little right of center. But there's curvature in the world of options, and we can take advantage of that to kind of tailor exactly what it is that we're trying to create on a P&L graph.
That's right.
So think outside the box, everyone. Just think about what it is. Have a goal. Think about what it is that you're trying to do, and even in the big picture, just what's your goal? How can I meet my goal without being excessive on either side of the equation? Too much risk, too little risk. There's a middle ground somewhere that can make you and your whoever you're having this conversation with, which is like your alter ego, happy. Everybody can be happy in this situation. The little gazoo sitting on your shoulder, that guy can be a little happy camper as well as you can.
Yep. So another point, kind of what you were bringing up, if you did, because sometimes we'll hear people say, well, I don't mind staying in it a year or two, but to reduce the risk, I'm going to just buy these 30-day options and continue rolling them. That's a really bad idea. If
Really
your
good.
if your premise and your outlook is really longer term, but you're just going to roll a bunch of these shorter term, that's going to really, really create a big
Not
hole to try
not
to
to
get out of.
mention that the whole idea of like anything can happen at
Yep.
any given time, and those chances of that anything happening that might actually go the wrong way for you in that shorter period of time doesn't give you the time period to like kind of let the idea play out.
That's right.
So, if you have a bullish outlook, hey, maybe your timing's off, right? You don't get it done the first 2 weeks or first month. Maybe it's going to be the 6 month time period, which is kind of another reason to think about like, why am I
Oh
really
yeah.
gonna stop?
Longer
It's
terms are going to give you that benefit because now the path doesn't matter so much. If you buy a 1 week option of call, you need the stock to start going up pretty much today. If you buy
today.
a 2 year option, the path that it takes doesn't really matter as long as we end up above our break even point in a year or 2 years, whatever that
And you got
expiration
lots of
date. We
time
got
to do it. Yeah.
lots of time to do it, right? Path becomes less important. So now, with that, we hope that helped everybody. Let's go back and answer our Chalk Talk question. Are short term options cheaper than long term? So, what'd you come up with here, Stu?
Uh, me, no, but I could make an argument on the other side too. The question is really like, are you talking about segments of time that you're buying, or are you talking about absolute dollars? I tend to, as
That's
a
what I came
trader,
up with too. That's why I came up with, which is
yeah,
generally our answer. It depends. If you want to make the argument that it's the absolute outlay, you know, $2 is less than $11, sure, they're cheaper, but that's not really a fair comparison because you're not comparing the same units of time.
yeah, and that is not how a trader should really
And
think
that's not
about
how that's really. So I think the better answer for traders is to say if we want to make really fair comparisons and put them on equal footing per unit of time, they are vastly more expensive. Now, again, that doesn't make them bad, but it shows that there's a lot more to options trading than just saying, I think it's going up, let me buy a call. So I think
Yeah.
with that, that's probably a good stopping point. We're getting some pretty
Okay.
serious rain down here, Stu.
Uh,
Been raining all, so I'm glad that the internet held up through all of this. But we will see many of you on our Q&A part 2 for Thursday today. And for the rest of you, we will see you next Thursday on Coach's Corner, and we'll see you then.
See everyone.